Alexander the Great, he's like 40.
And he died of like some sickness. He didn't die from like a battle wound.
Sickness probably really kicked in when we started gathering together and throwing our shit out the window. Our actual shit, like human shit.
Joe Rogan called it years ago. Alexander the Great's tomb would be found through systematic archaeology in Alexandria.
Alexander the Great dies, and his death is going to send shockwaves around the world. In life, he had been this invincible military conqueror who had taken over so much of the world.
Now, Greek archaeologist Calliope Papakosta has uncovered discoveries that suggest he was right.
Finding the tomb of Alexander is the dream of every archaeologist. It's the Holy Grail.
A marble statue of Alexander himself, Ptolemaic royal quarters, and underground chambers all point to the same location ancient sources described 2,000 years ago. But the question isn't just whether we've found his tomb. It's whether anything remains after centuries of earthquakes, invasions, and time itself.
Pappy might just be the closest archaeologist yet to uncovering the lost tomb of Alexander the Great.
Legendary death. In June 323 BC, inside the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II in Babylon, the world's greatest conqueror met an end no one expected. Alexander the Great was only 32, young, undefeated in battle, and at the height of his power. His sudden death stunned his army and left his empire in shock. Ancient sources tell us he fell ill after a lavish banquet, his health slowly declining until he could no longer speak. Whether it was fever, infection, or something more sinister, the truth remains uncertain. What matters most is not just how he died, but what happened next. Alexander's generals recorded that his body showed no signs of decay for days after his passing, an extraordinary detail that fueled whispers he was more than mortal. Some even claimed he had fallen into a death-like coma and was buried alive. Whatever the truth, this mysterious preservation set his corpse apart from all others in history. That single detail, the body that refused to rot, became the spark for centuries of fascination. When his generals fought over his empire, they also fought over his remains. Whoever held Alexander's body could claim not just political power, but divine legitimacy. And when one of his closest generals laid claim to it, the fate of Alexander's tomb turned into a legend that would outlive the empire itself. Stolen by generals. As Alexander's golden coffin was being carried toward Siwa, it never reached its destination. Somewhere in Syria, the funeral procession was intercepted by one of his most powerful generals, Ptolemy. This wasn't an act of theft in the shadows. It was a bold political move. By seizing Alexander's body, Ptolemy wasn't just taking possession of a corpse, he was seizing the divine power of Alexander's legacy. The coffin was first brought to Memphis, Egypt, where Alexander had once ruled. There, his remains rested while his vast empire fractured under the weight of rival claims. Soldiers, rulers, and former allies fought over territories, but Ptolemy had something greater, the body of the man everyone revered. Later, during the reign of Ptolemy II, the body was moved again. This time, it was taken to Alexandria, the city Alexander himself had founded. The tomb became known as the Soma, meaning the body, and it quickly turned into a sacred site. Pilgrims, leaders, and even future emperors like Julius Caesar came to see it. Ancient writers describe how people wept before Alexander's embalmed remains, treating him as more than human. His tomb was not just a burial site, it was a symbol of divine kingship, a beacon of power, and a place of worship. But then, centuries later, the Soma disappeared. Earthquakes may have swallowed it. Religious shifts might have erased its importance. Or perhaps it still lies hidden under the streets of modern Alexandria, waiting for rediscovery. Over time, archaeologists chased whispers, broken walls, carved stones, and painted fragments, all hinting at the tomb, but never proving it. The golden coffin of Alexander became one of history's most elusive treasures. But if you thought the story ended with its disappearance, wait until you see how one archaeologist's discovery reignited the hunt and shook the world's belief about where Alexander's tomb might truly lead. The Lost Statue. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan called the mystery of Alexander's missing tomb history-changing. He argued that if the tomb is ever found, it won't just be stone and bones. It could reveal texts, artifacts, maybe even Alexander's preserved remains, offering a window into one of history's most influential figures. Surprisingly, some of his speculation lines up with real scholarship. Ancient writers like Diodorus Siculus and Strabo confirm that Alexander's body was once displayed in Alexandria, first in a golden sarcophagus, later replaced with glass or alabaster. And today, Papakosta's excavations beneath the city keep uncovering clues that seem to support the idea. So, was Rogan right? In many ways, yes. Even leading archaeologists admit the ground under Alexandria may still hide the greatest tomb of them all. Calliope Papakosta wasn't driven by fame. What pushed her forward was something quieter but stronger. A belief that history still breathed beneath the streets of Alexandria. The city, layered with dust and centuries of forgotten stories, had whispered to her for years. She listened and she dug. At first, her team uncovered little more than sand, stones, and fragments of daily life. But then, on the final day of one excavation season, everything changed. From the ground, a marble hand appeared. Not just any hand. It carried weight, balance, and meaning. Papakosta dropped to her knees in shock. Later, she remembered praying as she studied the fingers, hoping they once gripped a spear. If so, this could confirm her greatest hope, that the statue was Alexander himself. And it was. The figure stood in the same tilted, downward-facing pose described in ancient texts. Plutarch once wrote that Alexander lowered his gaze toward Zeus, saying, "I belong to the earth. You take care of Olympus." Now that posture was frozen in marble, unmistakable in its stance and features. The style matched the work of Lysippos, Alexander's personal sculptor, and lined up perfectly with coins, frescoes, and busts from the Hellenistic age. This wasn't speculation, it was a match. The statue still stands today in the National Museum of Alexandria, softly lit behind glass. Visitors see it as a relic, but Papakosta viewed it as something more, a signal that she was searching in the right place. Her team kept uncovering clues. In 2015, they revealed a massive Ptolemaic-era structure buried 10 meters underground, complete with a carved tunnel hinting at royal construction. Another tunnel soon followed. Then, in 2017, came the real breakthrough, the discovery of what they believed to be the ancient royal quarters of Alexandria, near the crossroads described in historic accounts. Suddenly, the idea that Alexander's lost tomb lay only meters away felt closer than ever. The father's tomb. There's another theory, quieter but just as compelling. It points to Vergina, a small town in northern Greece, once called Aigai, the first capital of Macedonia. In the late 1970s, archaeologist Manolis Andronikos uncovered something extraordinary here: the intact royal tombs of the Macedonian dynasty. One chamber held the cremated remains of a man sealed inside a stone sarcophagus, accompanied by weapons, armor, and a golden wreath shaped like oak leaves, the sacred tree of Zeus. Many scholars identified him as Philip II, father of Alexander the Great. Another chamber contained the remains of a woman, believed to be Cleopatra Eurydice, one of Philip's wives. Together, these burials painted a vivid picture of royal power, divine imagery, and the rituals of Macedonia's ruling family. Murals inside the tombs added even more weight. They showed hunting and battle scenes, the very kind of heroic acts both Philip and Alexander were celebrated for. Another chamber offered an even more haunting clue: a wall painting of Hades abducting Persephone, the same theme found in other high-status Macedonian burials. It symbolized the passage from life to death, from mortal to God, exactly the way Alexander was remembered. The discovery at Vergina proved something crucial. Macedonian royal tombs could survive more than 2,000 years intact. And more importantly, they provided a template for what Alexander's own tomb might look like. The architectural layout, the burial practices, and even the preservation methods seen at Vergina match descriptions from ancient writers about Alexander's final resting place. And this is where the connection becomes clear. The same kinds of features found at Vergina are now appearing in Papakosta's digs beneath Alexandria. From tunnels cut with royal precision to the style of statues and structures she's uncovered, the similarities of Vergina's royal burials keep resurfacing. Joe Rogan and Papakosta, on the same page. With each layer they removed, Papakosta's team felt like they were stepping closer to something sacred. The royal quarters uncovered in Alexandria weren't just broken walls or empty corridors. They were part of a city plan drawn during Alexander the Great's own lifetime. Streets lined up with the stars, buildings placed with exact purpose. It was a design meant to honor both heaven and earth. If a tomb for a godlike king was ever built, this was the place. Support quickly came from many corners. The Greek company Kleos, Egypt's Reliance Group, and the M.B. Camus Foundation all funded the mission. Even National Geographic stepped in, offering advanced tools like electrical resistivity tomography. With this, researchers sent electrical pulses into the ground, mapping hidden cavities and chambers that no human eye could see. It fueled the thought that something monumental was still waiting below. But then, another theory surfaced, one that had haunted archaeologists for years. What if Alexander's tomb wasn't in Alexandria at all? Hundreds of miles away, in Amphipolis, Greece, stood the mysterious Kasta tomb. Excavated in 2012 by Greek archaeologist Katerina Peristeri, it stunned experts with its sheer scale. A massive circular wall, stretching over 1,640 feet, enclosed the tomb, longer than 5 football fields. 2 towering sphinxes guarded the entrance, symbols of power and protection. Inside, the tomb revealed 4 chambers. 2 female statues, known as caryatids, stood with one arm outstretched, as if blocking intruders. The floor displayed a breathtaking mosaic of Hades abducting Persephone, a clear reference to the underworld. Beyond, a marble door opened to the innermost chamber. There lay the remains of 5 people, a woman over 60, 2 men in their 30s, an infant, and a cremated body whose identity still puzzles scholars. But what truly sparked debate were the symbols etched across the site. Macedonian stars, shields, sunbursts, and crests, all linked to Alexander's dynasty. Was this a royal family tomb, a cenotaph, or something more? Whether in Alexandria or Amphipolis, the hunt for Alexander's final resting place is far from over. How Alexander's body was sold for parts. Back in Egypt, darker stories swirled around Alexander's legacy. What if his tomb wasn't simply lost to time, but broken apart by greed? One theory suggests that in the 2nd century BC, during a famine, Ptolemaic guards secretly opened the Soma at night. Piece by piece, they stripped away the golden sarcophagus, selling it off like treasures smuggled down the Nile. His body, they say, slipped into the black market, traded like spices at Red Sea ports. From there, the story only grows stranger. Arab merchants supposedly exchanged fragments for frankincense, the same resin once used in his embalming. By the 1st century AD, Roman collectors may have owned pieces too. Writers like Pliny the Elder mention rare auctions where golden relics fetched fortunes. A senator's fortune could buy what was said to be a part of Alexander's coffin. Even a wrapped head with Ammon's horns, repurposed as a relic in Palmyra. It wasn't random theft. Many point to Ptolemy, Cleopatra's father, who pawned royal treasures to pay his debts in 58 BC. Whispers claim even Alexander's diadem was melted into coins stamped with Ptolemy's own image. Later, in the Byzantine era, relic hunters smuggled remains out of Alexandria as the city fell in 642 AD. Viking mercenaries in Constantinople traded some of these relics along northern trade routes. A lapis-inlaid eye from the coffin supposedly ended up in a Rus grave, buried with a chieftain boasting ties to the Lion of Macedon. By the Middle Ages and Renaissance, fragments were rumored to appear in European vaults. A Florentine codex described Lorenzo de' Medici buying the Conqueror's Hand in Venice. That relic vanished during Rome's sack in 1527, only to resurface in Spain years later. Even in modern times, whispers continued. 19th century auctions listing Macedonian bone fragments, and in 2023, a gold leaf traced to Nile silt turned up in a Dubai vault. Today, researchers like Dr. Ahmed Khalil are trying to follow the trail. Using blockchain tracking, he linked artifacts from Cairo bazaars to Geneva salons. One femur, stored in the Louvre's basement and mislabeled Ptolemaic unknown, even matched Macedonian DNA. The idea is unsettling. Alexander's tomb wasn't just robbed, it was scattered across the world. Reborn as a saint. In the 4th century AD, the Roman world changed forever. Emperor Theodosius declared Christianity the empire's only religion. Pagan shrines were smashed, temples abandoned, and old gods forgotten. In Alexandria, that meant the Soma, the shrine of Alexander the Great, once treated as a god, was suddenly in danger. But instead of destroying it outright, church leaders may have done something more strategic. They reused it. By 392 AD, records speak of a new tomb in the same royal quarter. This one said to hold Saint Mark the Evangelist, founder of the Alexandrian Church. Mark had been martyred centuries earlier, but suddenly his body was rediscovered, just as mentions of Alexander's tomb began to vanish. The timing feels too perfect. Some believe the solution was simple. Alexander's preserved corpse was renamed. His golden sarcophagus was covered with crosses, and hymns replaced the rituals of hero worship. Pilgrims came, kneeling before what they thought was Saint Mark, never knowing they might be standing over the remains of the world's greatest conqueror. Christian writers added to the mystery. By the early 5th century, figures like John Chrysostom were describing Mark's incorrupt body, the same language once used about Alexander, whose remains were said to resist decay. Even the objects connected to the shrine seemed to blur together. Alexander's spear, according to some traditions, was later passed off as Mark's staff. Frescoes once filled with Dionysian vines were redone with Eucharist grapevines, the transformation was complete. Centuries later, in 828 AD, as Arab forces threatened Alexandria, Venetian merchants claimed to have stolen St. Mark's body and taken it to Venice. To fool Muslim inspectors, they supposedly hid the relic inside barrels of pork. From there, it was enshrined in the Grand Basilica of St. Mark, where it became a powerful symbol of Venetian pride and pilgrimage. Even today, hints of Alexander linger in Venice. Scholars have noted Macedonian-style carvings built into the basilica's altar, sunbursts, shields, and marble that closely resemble pieces of Alexander's lost tomb. If true, it would mean that pilgrims kissing the feet of St. Mark have for centuries been bowing before Alexander the Great himself. Mausoleum lost to the Mediterranean. When it comes to Alexander the Great's final resting place, theories never stop flowing. But not everyone agrees on where the truth lies. One of the strongest voices in this debate is historian Paul Cartledge, who believes the hunt might be focused on the wrong place entirely. Cartledge argues that Alexander would not have been laid to rest in some hidden, fragile spot. He was a world conqueror, and his burial site would have matched his status, something solid, monumental, and meant to last. Look at Augustus's mausoleum in Rome. It's still standing today, Cartledge points out. So why can't we see Alexander's? His explanation comes down to geography. In ancient Alexandria, the Bruchium district, home to the royal palace and sacred quarters, stood right at the edge of the Mediterranean. Over the centuries, earthquakes and shifting waters swallowed much of it. Huge sections of the old city now lie underwater. If Alexander's mausoleum stood in that district, then today it could be sitting on the seabed, buried beneath layers of sand and stone. This idea has driven explorers and divers for decades. Sunken ruins, toppled columns, and carved walls pulled from Alexandria's harbor all suggest that something monumental might still rest below the waves. Teams like Frank Godio's have already uncovered parts of Cleopatra's palace, proving that much of Alexandria's grandeur is still hiding under the sea. That kind of skepticism keeps the debate grounded. While it's exciting to imagine grand discoveries waiting to be unveiled, the truth may be more complicated. Alexander's tomb might indeed lie beneath the Mediterranean, hidden in ruins no diver has yet reached. Egypt celebrated with a new underwater museum at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, drawing millions of visitors. But time has a way of erasing even the greatest legacies. Cartledge is skeptical that a corpse could have survived the centuries unless it had been sealed in some kind of coffin designed to withstand decay. And even then, the odds are slim. With a touch of dark humor, he suggests another possibility. My guess is that his body could have been eaten by a shark. What if Alexander had lived? What if Alexander the Great never died at 32? Instead of whispering to the strongest, Alexander keeps control. He names no random successor. He plans for a dynasty. He marries Statera, and soon they have sons, heirs to keep his empire whole. With his health back, his dream of expansion doesn't fade. First, he looks east. Arabia becomes his target. With fleets sailing from the Euphrates and camel armies carrying siege engines, Alexander takes control of trade routes by 320 BC. Cities like Petra and ports on the Red Sea fall easily. Incense, silk, and spices now flow straight into his empire. Next, he turns west. In this version of history, the great struggles between his generals, the Diadochi, never happened. Instead, he keeps them busy but loyal, handing out lands like Arabia and Egypt under his authority. No stolen body, no split kingdoms. By 315 BC, He moves against Carthage. His phalanx crushes their armies, and Rome, still small at the time, chooses alliance over war. Rome's soldiers even learn from Macedonian tactics, swapping short swords for long spears. By 310 BC, Alexander pushes further. He takes Iberia, renames Cadiz New Alexandria, and taps into silver mines that make his empire richer than ever. He invests this wealth into learning, libraries, schools, and canals linking rivers and seas. Greek becomes the shared language from Spain to India. But culture is not just Greek. Alexander blends traditions. Persian, Indian, and Egyptian beliefs mix with Greek philosophy. Temples carry Zoroastrian fires. Indian sages debate with Greek thinkers. And Babylon becomes a hub of knowledge. Imagine roads connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia so smoothly that trade never stops. No dark ages, no loss of knowledge, just continuous growth. Religion also changes. Without Rome rising on its own, Christianity develops differently, maybe blending with Greek gods and Persian ideas. Islam might emerge too, but as a reform inside Alexander's global empire, not as a separate force. By the time Alexander reaches 50, he's still leading, but also preparing his sons. His empire stretches from the Ganges to Gibraltar. Technology advances faster. Steam engines, power mills, aqueducts, green deserts, and scholars spread knowledge worldwide. In this alternate world, we might all speak Greek today. The Renaissance could have come centuries earlier. America might have been discovered long before Columbus. And wars? Fewer, because one man's vision of unity outlasted him. How would the world look today? Let us know in the comments below.